Never laid a hand on me, nor I on him, but gosh, what dreams.
Good evening. I'm Charles Kuralt. With a little less color, this room should seem very familiar. It's a place where we've all spent some wonderful times. It's the living room of Rob and Laura Petrie. You'll excuse me if I don't trip over the ottoman. Tonight, we're going to take a look back at one of the most innovative, inventive, and enjoyable comedies in television history, The Dick Van Dyke Show. Television might just be the way future historians look for insights into our times. The shows we watched may give some clues to who we were. If that's the case, this is a show of which we can be proud, one that reflects the youth and promise and optimism of the early 1960s. So sit back and join me as we visit some old friends, have some good laughs, and hear about television history from the people who made it. When the Dick Van Dyke Show premiered on October 3rd, 1961, not many people realized that this was an evolutionary moment in television. There had never been a situation comedy like this before. The Dick Van Dyke Show took television a giant step closer to real life. For the first time, when the husband said, "Honey, I'm home," you knew where he'd been. The show followed him to the office. What he did at work had a relationship with what he did at home. It was planned that way. This was a show about a real life in the real world. That life was Carl Reiner's. And like many success stories, this one starts in the unemployment line.
From 1950 to 1959, I was working with Sid Caesar on your show of shows and Caesar's Hour. The show was over, I had no job. They gave me situation comedies. People, the agents kept sending them. They weren't any good. My wife said, "Why don't you write one?" I said, "Why don't you write one?" And I wrote one. I said, "What ground do I stand on that nobody else stands on? I'm a husband, I live in New Rochelle, I worked on the show of shows with Sid Caesar. That's it." And it became the Dick Van Dyke Show, ultimately. At that point, it was head of the family when I did it, not as well. And the next thing you know, it didn't sell. The next thing you know, I said, "That's it, I'm finished with television. That's my best shot. You don't like that, you don't like me."
Carl was obviously a witty and creative man, and I would have thought that anything he put together would have deserved a chance. And he showed me the pilot.
What are you saying? How can he dislike me? I'm his father.
Some children have been known to hate their fathers.
He's only 6 years old. He doesn't know me long enough to hate me. Richie, do you hate your daddy? See?
And I came to the unhappy conclusion that the reason Carl Reiner's pilot didn't sell was because of Carl Reiner.
Sheldon Leonard, who I respected as an actor, was also a tremendously successful producer of shows. He had the Andy Griffith Show, the Danny Thomas Show, the Real McCoys, and myriad of others. And when he came to me and suggested that we do this show again, which was called Head of the Family, I said, absolutely not. I don't want to fail twice with the same material. No. You won't be the actor. You'll be the producer, writer, creator. You won't act. We'll get somebody else.
That was it. When Carl stepped out, we replaced him with Van Dyke. So much of his talent lies not merely in his speech and the way he handled lines.
It was charming and graceful and funny, and what else do you need? And I didn't know the extent of his talent until he came on the Dick Van Dyke Show, because everything I said, "Sheldon, I don't know what I'm looking for." Then none of them seem right. You'll know when you find her.
I can't tell you how terrifying it was for me, because I had adored Carl Reiner as himself on your show of shows. And I had such a crush on him and was in such awe of him. To actually sit in the same room and read material with him that he had written was probably the toughest thing I had ever done in my life. And he was so wonderful. About midway through the scene, well, there were still maybe 3 or 4 more pages to go. He put his hand on my head.
And she got scared. She thought I was a producer who was going to do something. You know, what was the word then? It wasn't, anyway. I marched her into the office with my hand on her head. I said, "Sheldon, we got her."
Of that whole experience was watching the growth of Mary Tyler Moore, the person who became, since Stan Laurel, as a matter of fact. Oh, God, she could make me laugh.
And I'm sure any
I think
psychiatrist
any
worth his
psychiatrist
salt
would
would
have
say
said that.
Now, why I said it is another matter. Because I did have a crush on you. I really
and
did.
I had a crush on her. That's why it was good. See, you
See?
can't write that kind of stuff.
Now
know.
you tell us.
Rob and Laura Petrie were a reflection of America in the early 60s. There was a young, good-looking couple in the White House, much admired and imitated. And Rob and Laura became the ideal image of who we wished we could be. Rob and Laura were young parents, suburbanites, with a fresh, casual attitude toward life. For the first time on television, despite the twin beds, these two people were obviously in love, and they experienced all the ups and downs that love brings.
A couple who really dug each other, and I think that was
Right.
it.
In spite of the fact that we slept in twin beds, it was clear that there was some kind of activity going on.
Yeah.
And that's part of what really did make it special.
That's the secret
And
I come from, meaning did I come from Cleveland or Chicago? And then we do a whole flashback about his birth. And it was all shtick-like. It was all...
Thought he brought home the wrong baby because there was a big mix-up at the hospital between Peters and Petrie. She got her flowers, she got her dates. And they were sure they got the wrong kids. And they had the wrong birth certificate. And Mary was convinced that it couldn't be any Robbie and Annie. And Did You Bring Me Something is something that came from when I came home from the show of shows, the little kids, did you bring me something? And I'd always have I'd have to have something in the pocket, a piece of gum or a stone, anything.
What Carl did was that Carl took the humor and the situations to make the humor.
There was an episode about an intercom system, I think, called eavesdropping.
Carl Reiner learned the art of making people laugh, both on stage and in the writer's room of Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows and Caesar's Hour, in the company of some other pretty good young writers, Neil Simon, Mel Brooks, Lucille Callan, Mel Tolkien, Larry Gelbart. The first rule for young writers is to write about what you know. What Carl Reiner knew was a writer's room. Lucky for us.
The writer's room of Alan Brady Show was very much like the writer's room of the Sid Caesar or the Show of Shows, except that they had 7 or 8 writers. We only...
Writers who introduced themselves to me and say, I watched you guys writing on that show, and that made up my mind to be a writer. And they said, we found out it wasn't like that.
Character of Buddy Sorrell, people said, you did a great job playing that part. I said, I was playing myself. That's all.
Feeling maybe it was Mel Brooks that Maury was patterned after, because Mel used to be pretty sharp.
On 2 characters I knew, 2 wonderful writers, Lucille Callan and Selma Diamond. And there weren't a lot of female writers in those days. And we always felt that you will never get the woman's point of view from a man.
On an equal basis with the men. She made the same money that the men made. They were all equal. Nobody was female or male. And I think she inspired a lot of young...
Alan Brady was not a nice person. He had a sycophant around, and he treated him like a brother-in-law. And it was meaner than I would have been in that situation.
We were almost an improv group. We read each other's minds. We worked together like a barbershop quartet. It was just incredible.
As it turns out, Carl was right. When you write the truth about yourself, you can find something in there that'll make people laugh. Great writing came together with great producing and an extraordinary cast of performers to touch audiences in a way that still has us laughing.
One of the episodes that I love, and it seems everybody loves, because every time it plays, I mean, the Museum of Broadcasting, we played the whole episode.
Mad at her, mad at me, gonna fire me and everything. But underneath you could see that the comedy of it struck him, as Alan Brady.
Who knows? Maybe 100 years from now, shows like the Dick Van Dyke Show will still be appreciated and loved. They're vital, living expressions of the joys and foibles of being alive. They are works that endure because they told their stories with a kind of truth that lives in the hearts of all of us. I'd like to end by simply saying goodnight, stepping back, and letting the people and the images speak for themselves.
When people ask me about my days in show business, I say the 1960 to 1966, when we did the Dick Van Dyke Show, were the best years of my life.
those early days, that time of youth, those were remarkable times.
Every facet of my personality I got to bring to bear in that show. And I'm proud of it, and I hold that memory very, very dear, and always will.